Hey everybody, this is episode 49 of FoundersGyan and thanks for tuning in. In case you're tuning in for the first time, we bring the inspiring story of a startup and the founders behind the same. This week our guest is Mr. Tushar Bhargava and the startup we are covering is Marcas.in, that is Marcas.in. This is a startup that helps other startups in protecting their copyright and trademark. Their flagship product is the free trademark registration for startups. You only have to cover the government fees while Marcas does all the legwork for you for free. We'll talk more about this on the show. Also, we are launching a social media campaign in association with Marcas to clear common misconceptions about trademark registration. This will be a special segment in our upcoming podcasts. If you have a question that you want to ask regarding trademark registration, do use the hashtag #AskMarcas. That is AskMarcas in either Facebook or LinkedIn, and we'll answer your questions as part of the special segment in an upcoming show. Do check out the show notes page at foundersgyan.com/EP49 for all the juicy details of what we talk about on the show. Okay, time to start the show now. Tushar Bhargava, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to meet you and be chatting with you today. Tushar is one of the founders of Marcas, which is an intellectual property consultancy firm providing end-to-end solutions to intellectual property rights related queries. They have started this in December with their standout product, that is free filing of trademark registration application for entrepreneurs. Tushar, great to meet you and thanks a lot for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your knowledge, wisdom and time with our listeners. Thank you for agreeing to be on the show.
Hi Ram, it's pleasure is all mine. I mean, it's really great to come on a show finally after listening it for a long time.
Okay, thank you so much Tushar for your kind words of encouragement. Now, let's talk a little bit about your journey before Marcas. So can you just explain in maybe a few sentences your journey before you started Marcas, starting from let's say your education?
Okay, so basically when I was in college, so me and my co-founder, we both started a venture earlier when we were studying in college. So it was called Booksu. We used to provide used books, which was first of its kind at that particular time. It was around when I was in third year. So at that time we faced problems, difficulty when we had faced a difficulty, like people were using our name in that particular city, although we were small in size at that particular time. So we realized that we did more research on this, how people are registering their trademarks and everything. So at that time we realized that most of the filings are done by the CA who are not authorized, so they outsource their work. So basically, while outsourcing their work, they take the initial payment and then they forget their application basically. So when we were in final year, so we decided, like, why not provide something, like, since we started that venture because of some reason we had to close down. So we started at that particular point. We thought at that particular point, like, maybe we could do something for the startups, because generally they are cash strapped. So they have really difficulty in protecting their IP. Plus it's really expensive as well if you go to a decent attorney. So what we thought was, let's have our experience and knowledge and keep it to put that to use to help startups basically. So what we have decided is we will break down the procedure.
So explain to us in detail the concept of Marcas, and obviously you already touched upon this, the fact that you came up with this idea because you and your founder faced a problem. You are not able to register your company or face similar problems. So you already touched upon that, and so explain to us in detail, and also what does the name signify?
So Marcas is Spanish for brand name. So we came up with this name, Marcas. It's basically a Spanish word, yeah.
Okay, and explain to us a little bit in detail what you do.
Okay, so as I was telling you, like, our key product, the free filing of trademark registration. So basically it was, we thought that, people like us, when we were starting, we were cash strapped. We have difficulty in going to expensive lawyers who provide the trademark filings. So we thought, like, why not break down the procedure altogether and provide much like in an economical manner, so that everyone can register their brand name and protect it. Because if for you, I mean for you, since you're doing FoundersGyan, so you feel very close to that brand, and someone will misuse it, then definitely you won't like it a bit. So, so that was the whole point. So we broke the whole procedure of trademark registration. We broke it into 3 steps. So the first is filing. We do it for free. We just ask for the government fee and the small processing amount, which we incur while processing the application. And then, in case you get the objection by the trademark registry, then we charge for replying to that objection. So that's how we have made sure, like, you're spending only how much you require. You don't spend for something which you may or may not incur. So because generally the procedure is people charge you for the application as well as objection at once, and most of the times, what I've seen in my experience, they don't file for your objection.
Right. Okay. And what's the third step? You said you break down this into 3 parts.
So third is the opposition. So once the trademark registry gives you a thumbs up, like you are good for registration, so they publish your application in trademark journal, which is for the public to see and oppose. Like, say for example, if someone is using FoundersGyan, and in case you have or have not registered, but the trademark registry has said, all right, you can register. So they'll publish it in trademark journal, and then you, as a founder or as the person managing FoundersGyan, can oppose to that application, saying that you are using it, and so that's why that particular brand should not be registered.
Okay.
So
okay.
that is the third step.
Okay, great. And so the fees in the third step is to kind of proceed at that stage. If somebody opposes it, whether it's really a valid opposition or not. So for those processing, that's kind of compresses the third step. Excellent. Now let's talk about idea creation. Now, for our budding founders listening out there, can you tell us also how we can come up with a winning idea?
For winning idea, there's no fixed hard and fast rule. That I believe more than idea, it's the execution part. So for me, I mean, you can come up with any idea, but if you're not executing well, so then there is a problem. There will always remain a problem.
Right. Okay. So let's move on to the execution step. Okay. So let's assume that we have a good idea. So what are the steps that we need to take in order to make the idea into a reality? So can you give some high level steps? Do we do market research? Do we create a prototype? Do we try to do marketing, acquisition of customers? What is, in your opinion, the way to go about? You can maybe take the example of Marcas, or you have worked with a lot of startups, so you could maybe draw from their experiences and tell us what you think are high-level steps that a person needs to follow.
In my opinion, it will obviously vary from the idea to idea. I mean, there are certain ideas which are good for the public to review. Like, it's good to get authenticated by the public itself, by the customer itself. Because, in the end, they are your user. I mean, you might feel that this particular idea is like kick-ass idea, but then in the end, if audience is not accepting, if your customers are not accepting it, or they are having problem in approaching you or getting that particular idea, using that particular company or that idea, then you are in trouble. So it all varies, but yes, market research is really important. You need to see like what your competitors are doing and how they are doing, where that particular service is lacking, where you can improve and provide that additional, the additional boost to that particular thing.
Okay, excellent. Now let's talk about personal life. Now we all hear about founders sacrificing family times to make their ventures a success. Now you are a very young entrepreneur, so probably you don't have that many family responsibilities. Correct me if I'm wrong here. But your peers and your friends are probably having a regular job and maybe enjoying their life, enjoying their personal time. Maybe they have a 9 to 5 job or something. But as a startup founder, you have to put in more hours. Maybe you have to work weekends sometimes, and maybe you don't get to go out as much as they do because they get a regular paycheck. Maybe they earn more than you. So how do you kind of balance your startup and your personal time?
I personally do feel sometimes I miss out on so many parties, but yes, but not really. I mean, I try to manage as much as I can because I personally feel that personal life is equally important than professional life. So I make sure that I'm spending equal time with my friends and family. So I personally feel maintaining the balance is really important.
Okay, and what advice would you give for, let's say, founders who are like really tied up with their business or their startup? I mean, is there anything you could tell them that will help them, balance out both personal time and business time?
I think family is equally important. Family and friends. I mean, it's fine. It's your passion. You should follow your passion and everything. But then, if you're not spending the time with your family, then what? I mean, there has to be a purpose as well. So, I feel like you should. It's important to balance out on certain things.
Right. Okay. So doesn't matter how you do it, but you should take time out and do it. Would that be kind of the bottom line of what you're saying?
Yes, right. I mean, one day in a week or say few hours in a week, I mean, that's quite manageable in case you want to. Otherwise, you will always have an excuse.
Right. Okay. Great advice, Tushar. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, let's talk about a daily or a morning ritual. Is there a daily or a morning ritual that you follow? Can you share it with myself and our listeners? It could be a personal one, like say working out first thing in the morning, or maybe a professional one where you have a call first thing in the morning, a meeting with your your co-founder the first thing. I can see a photo of somebody running. I don't know whether that's you. So on Skype. So maybe you have a passion for running or something. Do you jog every day or something?
Not really. I mean, I'm a state level player, football player. I used to play when I was in college. I've reduced quite a lot now. But yes, other than sports, I mean, there's no morning ritual. But yes, before sleeping, me and my founder, we discuss what we have done today and how we can take it forward. What we have missed, how we can improve, and we just discuss the whole day and then we sleep. So it's not a morning ritual, but yes, before sleeping, this is what.
Okay, I think that's a great one because I've listened to a lot of different podcasts and I've also read quite a bit that the start of the day is important and equally important is the end of the day. Just before you go to sleep, the kind of things you think about and talk about kind of influence a lot of things in your subconscious mind, and while sleeping you could get some really good breakthroughs and ideas if you're thinking about some specific problem or you have some specific problem in your mind. So I think it's great that you guys are doing that. Now let's you just touched on your co-founder, so let's talk a little bit more on that. So you already told us that you and him were trying to start a startup before this, and that's where I presume you met him. So again, correct me if I'm wrong, and if you know your co-founder much earlier.
Yes,
But yeah, so go on with that. First, let's clear that out. Was that when you met him, or do you know him much earlier?
Yes, I mean I met him. Yes, we met on the first year of our college. So I know him for like last 6 years. So it's been a long time.
Okay, great. And what advice would you give for people who are starting out with regards to co-founders? How important are co-founders? Do you really need a co-founder, or can you do it on your own? And how do you get good co-founders? What qualities do you need to see in a good co-founder?
It's really important to have a co-founder, at least in my opinion. I mean, I personally feel that co-founder is really important for your business because everyone has certain flaws and everyone has certain advantages. So a co-founder should be the one who can, balance it out. Because in our case, I mean, I'm the one who's generally taking decisions on emotional basis, on going with the flow mode, but he generally analyzes the thing and then decides on the merit. So, sometimes I might make a blunder. If I'm on my own, I might make a big blunder, but then he is there to balance it out and make sure that, things are going perfectly fine. So, in my opinion, I personally feel co-founders are really important.
Okay, and what advice would you give for founders to look for in a co-founder, or where to get them? I mean, do you just go with known people? Can unknown people work as co-founders? What qualities should you look out for?
I've heard a lot of people saying that one should not start a business with his friends or family because that might create certain problems. But I personally feel knowing that person, trusting that person is really important because in the end you're a team, and if there is a lack of trust, so there might be a lot of problems between you eventually, at least on some stage. So I feel you should know that person really well inside out, and you should be able to trust that person.
Okay, great. Now let's go on to another personal question. So can you tell us about something yourself? Can you tell us something about yourself that is not commonly known? Maybe even your friends would be surprised to hear that, okay, Tushar has this skill or has this hobby or something like that.
I don't think so. There is anything of this sort.
Are you sure?
Not really. I don't think. Yes. My friends know me inside out most of them.
Okay, great. So we will skip that and move on to the next question. Now, if you like this show, do follow us on Facebook and Twitter. The link is www.facebook.com/FoundersGyan and twitter.com/FoundersGyan. Both these provide you daily tips and articles as well as resources to help and inspire your startup. There are multiple tips per day. Some examples of these tips would be articles on the latest startups, growth hacking tips, how do you build team for startups, how to get funding, etc. So don't forget facebook.com/FoundersGyan and twitter.com/FoundersGyan. What is the best advice somebody has given you, or alternatively best advice that you've heard or read and try to follow it in your own life and business?
From business point of view, fail quick, fail cheap. One of my friend told me this. Fail quick, fail cheap. I mean, I believe that thing. Like sometimes people, because every entrepreneur thinks its product is its baby. So sometimes they get quite emotional, and even after knowing that it's not working or it is doomed to fail, I mean they still try to pump some money or invest some time in it. So it's really important, like people know it when to stop. It's really important to know when to stop.
Okay, great. So how do you differentiate between, say, stopping or like you say, understanding that okay, it's a failed model versus just giving up? What would you say is the difference between understanding when something is failed versus not having enough persistence and just giving up?
Sometimes when you start a particular project or you start a particular venture, you realize you miss out on certain key essential things, and when you start running that particular the particular venture, you realize that something is missing. So when you realize that particular thing, there are two options. I mean, you should know how to improvise it, how to make sure that that is no more a problem or a hurdle in your business. But at a point, there are times when you realize that you cannot really do much about it. It is how it is. So that is that point you should realize that it's really difficult. Either it's not scalable or it's that people are not accepting it, at least at this particular point of time. So maybe you can start it maybe you can bring that product after 2 years, after 3 years, when the audience is more mature enough to take it. But at that particular point, it is not feasible to go ahead with that particular.
Okay, great, great advice, Tushar. I think that will really help founders listening out there understand, the difference between just giving up and understanding when something is not good. Now, let's talk about inspiring our listeners. Now, startups come with a lot of pressure, and every day is sometimes it can be like big high. You get a new customer. Sometimes it could be a big low. You lose an existing customer, and so on. So, the startup journey is a roller coaster journey, as we all know. So, give us some tips on how we can handle pressure when things aren't going too well.
Always remember, this time shall pass. I mean, it's a good time or bad time. This time is, the only thing constant is the constant. I mean, everything changes. Everything changes. So don't worry about the negativity. Don't worry about that. In case you get into a trouble, just believe in yourself. Just believe in your product and just keep working.
Okay, excellent advice once again, Tushar. Thank you so much for sharing that. We just have another 3 or 4 more questions. Now, let's talk about your worst entrepreneurial moment. Now, obviously, you had a failed venture, so maybe you could talk about that, or even in your current venture, if you had a really low point that you think was your worst entrepreneurial moment, you could talk about that. So, we would like to hear how you either turned it around, the steps you took to turn it around, or doesn't matter, even if you couldn't turn it around, the more importantly, the lessons you learned from that experience.
Firstly, the earlier venture, I mean, it wasn't a failed venture per se. What happened, due to some personal reasons, we had to close it down. So it wasn't a failed model exactly, but then yes. I think the days when you really feel low because of people not coming to you at the initial stages. People are like, you work really hard and then people just don't understand the value of it. So that's the only point when you feel like, what is it worth it? Is it worth the trouble? Those days, like, I personally feel like, those are like really tough moments to go by, because those times you actually think like, are you like, is it really what you want? Like, is this something which you want to do exactly? So if you can pass those moments, I mean, then.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of worst moment you talked about, which I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs could relate to. They are building something and they're just not getting the traction, and they don't know if it's really worth it. But what do you think we should do? I mean, when something like that happens, I mean, how can we say what can we learn from that experience, or how can we motivate ourselves to keep pushing forward?
So again, this is the time when your co-founder plays an important role. I mean, he can really motivate you again, like whatever you're thinking. This time shall pass. I mean, right now you're not getting traction, but then where you can work upon. At least if someone, you say for example, you started with a particular marketing strategy and you're not getting enough traction, so at least this is not the way go ahead. This is not the way how you should go ahead with. So maybe change your strategy, discuss, take a step back, realize what have you done which can be improvised, how you can make that product better, why people are not taking it. Just introspect on your product and then again, work hard to make it happen.
Okay, excellent advice, Tushar. Thank you so much for that. Now, what's the future you envision for Marcas? Can we talk about some stats? Could you tell us how many companies, how many startups have taken up your service, and what more offerings do you plan to bring out in the future?
Currently, we've started with. Currently, we're providing end-to-end solutions for trademark and copyright. So from registration till protecting your ID, protecting your IP. So like, once you're registered, you should also be aware, like, if any competitor is using, not just competitor, but if any other person is using your brand name as well, or trying to register a similar name to your brand. So you need to protect that as well. You need to make sure, like, say your brand is for FoundersGyan. So if someone uses FoundersGyan 123, then someone might believe that, it's from you only. so he can use the profit or he can make money out of it. So you need to protect your brand even after even after the registration process is completed. So we provide that service as well, and we see like we can diversify into more to patents as well, to geographical indications as well. And and about your question, like how we have done so far, we've started in December 2015, and from that time we have completed around 35 trademark applications.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And sorry, I kind of put words into your mouth when I said, are you going to expand your offerings? But really, the question should have been, what is the vision for your company?
Vision is basic, like I said, like when we started our first project, we realized that entrepreneurs are actually facing really trouble in protecting their IP. So the whole vision was to make sure that all the entrepreneurs protect their IP, because it's really important. I mean, people don't realize the value of it most of the times, and when people start duplicating their product or using a similar name to imitate their product, not imitate, but what do you say? To portray that it's from the same brand, and that's the time when they realize that they should have had protected their IP. So we want, like at least it should be what do you say? It should be there with everyone. Like everyone should be able to protect their IP. This is what we vision, and this is what our vision is.
Okay, and again, the startups, the trademark registration is free except for the processing and the government charges, right? So any of our listeners who are either already having a startup or planning to do a startup, they can contact you to get this free service, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so and you would encourage everybody to do it, right? I mean, whoever has a brand name, I think everybody should do it, right?
No, even if it's not your brand name, I mean, see, even the best time, if there are a lot of people who have asked me, like, what's the best time to get your trademark done? So it's not when you're established, it's when you're starting up, because most of the times what happens is you honestly intend to choose a name, and you don't know there is an existing trademark registered with it, because the one which is registered is is restricted to a particular local area. Say for example, that brand is only in a particular state, and you're going on a national level. So at that time, you might you might come into trouble at that particular point of time when you grow. So it's always best to get it registered when you're starting up, so that there's no single brand registered with this name or using this particular name or similar name person.
Okay. I think that will be quite a bit of a revelation for a lot of listeners out there. That includes myself, because everybody always thinks that trademark is something that is very commonly known, but obviously there are these like hidden angles to it, wherein just like you explained, that was just one specific angle that you explained, that it could be registered in a local area. So like that, there could be several pitfalls. So I think it's I would also encourage all our listeners to kind of register when they are just starting out, or doesn't matter, even if they have started out, they can still register. Now Marcas is about 8 months old, and hindsight is always 2020. But is there something you would do different if you started this today?
Not really, no.
Okay, great. Now, there's just a couple more questions. So, are there any books or resources that you could recommend for our budding entrepreneurs?
I personally love reading autobiographies. I mean, it's like it provides so much insight about the people who have succeeded. I mean, there are very few. Most of the people who have succeeded, I mean, they started from the scratch, and then they've grown out to become what they've become, like. So basically, I personally prefer reading autobiographies. One of them, my favorite was this one of Palias Nariman, Before Memory Fades. It's a wonderful book. I mean, everyone should read it.
Okay, great. We will link that up on the show notes. And before we move on to the final question, how can our listeners get in touch with you? Obviously, they can go to your website, which is www.marcas.in, and they can get in touch with your company. But specifically, if any entrepreneurs or want to talk to you personally for any specific reason, what's the best way to reach out to you? Are you active on social media or email? What's the best way to reach out to you personally?
I'm quite active on Quora and LinkedIn and Twitter.
Okay, so I will get the details of your handles on these offline, and I will link it up on the show notes. So before we move on to the final question, I just want to take the time to acknowledge and thank you for sharing your knowledge to myself and our listeners. I'm also very grateful to the value you're adding into the world by means of your startup, and I think what you're providing is an excellent service. It's a free service, and I think there is just no excuse for not using it. This is something that is of real value to the startup community. So I wish you continued luck, and with that we'll move on to the final question. So if there is one gyan, only one gyan that you could give our would-be founders, what would that be?
Follow your dreams, but make sure that you're making money out of it.
Okay, Tushar, that's great advice. Yeah, nobody wants, it's not good if you follow your dreams and end up dying a pauper, right? So I think it's great advice. Well said, Tushar. Thank you so much for your time. It was a real pleasure chatting with you, and I wish you all the very continued success in your venture.
Thank you so much, Ram, for having me on your show. It was such a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Tushar.
There you have it, folks, another inspiring startup and its story. I hope you liked it. Do check out foundersgyan.com/EP49, and don't forget that we are also featured on Bol Hyderabad every Monday and Thursday at 7 p.m. The radio show covers a different startup than what you have just heard, so do tune in to 90.4 FM if you are in Hyderabad, or check out the show on the internet. It's pretty easy. Just search for Bol Hyderabad online in Google and you can listen to the show. Lastly, use the hashtag AskMarcas, that is AskMarcas, on Facebook and Twitter to ask your questions regarding trademark, and we'll answer them in upcoming shows. I'll see you all next week. I do hope you got inspired, and do take action on your own startup in the meantime. Thanks again for tuning in, and have a great rest of the week ahead.